Oh my god. Hi guys, how are you? Alright, so this is the 5th time I've tried now. I was just speaking to nothing, like I thought it was recording, and then I looked and I'm like, oh, it's not recording. And as a result of all the energy that we have going on, we have this new moon in Libra, we have the retrograde of Venus, all of the stuff coming and going, up and down. We have that just so much, like we're going back and forth, things from the past are coming up, doubts, fears, insecurities, the unconscious, all of that. And for me, I put out a post the other day. I was like, all right, I'm going to share my awakening story and like my story so I can, maybe identify with others, help others who are on the same path, bring some, I guess just information or pieces of the puzzle for those out there who are interested. And I went back and forth for a few days. Like I was like, I'm going to do it tonight. And then I didn't that night and I didn't last night. And so tonight I've put it off until like, 2:30 in the morning. And then I was like, well, maybe I'll do some cards and like a quick energy update in the beginning, just in case people aren't interested in my story. And like, I'm going to that place of doubt instead of just doing what I want to do. But it was funny because I did record one with the cards, and it just, I don't know. So I'm just going to go with the flow right here. I will bring out the cards that were there just so that you guys can see how it is fitting into this dynamic. Let me put them back in the order that I pulled them out. All right. This one was the last one. All right, and this is the Syrian Starseed Tarot, so it's a little bit different than the regular tarot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a little rundown of, like, this energy that we have going on, and then I'm going to go into who I am, my awakening story, and I'm going to try to tie it in. So the first one that came out tonight is the Lovers, and that makes a lot of sense because the Lovers carries the Gemini energy. It carries that, like, wishy-washy back and forth. So collectively, men, women, everybody, I feel like we're doing this to ourselves where it's like 1 minute we're like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, and the next minute we're like, nope. Or 1 minute you may be really pulled to do something, and the next moment you're like, I don't think that's right. And it is a lot connected to like our unconscious. It's connected to our beliefs. It's connected to our fears, our insecurities, our doubt. And this could be as a result, too, of things that we've got going on in our lives, because the next one is the Seven of Crystals. And, you see the guy here, he's like looking down here at all the stuff that he's got manifested. It seems like he's got a great foundation. The tower is standing up here behind him. There's a lot of people back here. But he's over here focused on this, and it looks like there's something missing, He's got all this beautiful crystals. He's got this beautiful tower back here. There's all these people back here. But he's like isolated away and like focused on something that's just not there. Now, I feel like this could be connected to some people with relationships. Some maybe like, the Venus retrograde brings that stuff from the past. Like you may be reminiscing about certain people, or, if you, like me, you may have lost a lot of people recently who you were friends with. So you may be looking at that and being like, what happened? I know for me, I keep doing that. Like I keep looking back over the, weeks, months, years, and being like, what did I say? What did I do? Like trying to recall something that could have resulted in this. And then, other moments I go back and I'm like, no, this is all because of this. But we still go back and forth, and we have all these beautiful things in our lives, but there's still like an unfulfilled part there. So the 7 is also connected with the unconditional love. It's connected with that spiritual energy. So I do feel like there is hope here, like you've built a beautiful foundation. You've got beautiful things there for you. So you need to start focusing on that stuff. And then, opening up your vibe, making that decision to move forward with the light and with like what makes you happy, follow your heart, follow your gut, trust yourself. And as you do that, and as you emanate out the vibration that you want to emit and that you want to like experience in this reality, the right people will come in and join you in your foundation, and then you'll be able to celebrate all these beautiful things that you have and celebrate this foundation that you've created for yourself. And then we had Luna come through, which makes sense because we've got the new moon energy, and the Luna card you know, it represents the moon, it represents the unconscious, it can be those fears, those insecurities. You know, if you're sitting here thinking about stuff in the past, maybe your emotions are upset, maybe you're imbalanced, maybe your inner child needs work. There's shadow inside of us, and our unconscious mind is so strong. You know, you can spend all day, you know, trying to shift your focus and be like, oh, you know what, I'm not going to think about that, that doesn't bother me, and blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, when you go to sleep, it shows up in your dreams, it's in your unconscious, and, you know, really, your mind always brings you back to the part that needs your attention the most. So I feel like it's that time, it's like, we have this hope here that, you know, we're going to wake up and we're going to embrace, we're going to surrender into the darkness, we're going to embrace our emotions, we're going to look at these insecurities, these doubts and these fears, and we're going to be like, all right, you know what, let me move forward, let me get out of this space of like lack, or, you know, not seeing what's here present in front of me. You know, let me make the decision to vibrate into love, into truth, into integrity. And, you know, then that will be rippling into your dreams and into your unconscious. And then that will be rippling out on all levels and bringing alignment on all levels. And we have the Adept of Flames. And so the flames is like your energy. It's, you know, and the Adept is the night. So I do feel like, for me too, there's this underlying energy to just keep moving forward. Even though we've got this doubt, even though we've got these fears, even though like our insecurities are coming up, our emotions may be rising and falling, you know, we may be like unsure about our decisions, we may be unsure about our relationships, you know, there may be stuff coming up from the past, like, you know, past friends, family, lovers. You know, there may be something that just like feels unfinished or incomplete, but the Adept of Flames helps you with that energy to move forward with the stamina needed to complete this journey and to, you know, overcome the darkness, overcome the shadow. And it's not even overcome, because I don't like saying that. It's like, we don't want to run from our darkness. We like want to embrace it, heal it, illuminate it, so that we can understand it and heal, so that we're not like stuck in this place of like manifesting a bunch of beautiful stuff, but still at the back of our head having all these doubts and unconscious shit in there. And are we ever going to be like completely free of it? Probably not, because we live on a third dimensional reality with duality, and, you know, everybody has free will. So of course our intentions and things like that aren't always going to go exactly as planned, but we do need to hold on to that energy underneath of, you know, fighting through, pushing through, staying true to who we are, and not allowing this to overrun everything. We've got the Eight of Orbs, and this orbs equates to swords, which is all that mental strife in the mind, and you can see like they're all entangled in like these branches, and like she's got like a mask over her eyes, like she's not seeing, and it's because of the doubts, the fears, the insecurities. You know, it's that pain, it's that darkness. You know, maybe somebody hurt you, maybe multiple people hurt you, maybe you've lost people from this physical reality, maybe you've lost your home, maybe you lost your job, maybe you lost your best friend. It, like, you know, it could be a multitude of things. And because of that, because you're focusing on that lack, or you're focusing on like the insecurity surrounding it, like why is this happening to me? You may be going into like a low vibe of like feeling like a victim. That's gonna, you know, blindfold you. You're not gonna be able to see your reflection in anything, and you're not really gonna want to see your reflection in anything if you're coming from that place. So it's almost like you have to be protected from yourself. But again, a lot of this feels like it's connected to our unconscious. So like in your conscious day to day, you may not even be aware of this stuff, but you gotta be aware that everything we've experienced in our lifetime creates thoughts, and it creates unconscious stuff, and it's like we've got all these beliefs passed down to us, we've got all this limiting crap up in our brains and in our cells and in our DNA. We need to overcome it, and in order to overcome it, we gotta ride that energy into it, you know, face that dark, you know, embrace it, go in there, find the emotions connected to stuff, look back into the past, into your traumas, and, you know, stay focused on like the good stuff in your life and the foundation you've created for you, but release the burdens that you're holding on to that are like really not allowing you to see it fully. Make that decision for true love, and that's going to lead you to that Empress energy, that High Priestess energy of abundance. That's going to rise out of that emotional turmoil. It's going to rise out of the fear. And when you rise into this, whether you're a man or woman, you know, it's like you become powerful, and you are the creator, you're the manifester, and you rise into a new vibration of yourself. And so for me, like, with my story, I don't even feel like the same person that I was, you know, a year ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. You know, I feel a lot different. And I don't even, like, I was realizing too earlier as I was thinking about this, like, how am I going to do this video? Like, I never even, like, tell you guys my name. I'm just like, hey guys, what's up? So, my name is Bridget Rao. I was born May 18th, 1984. I am a Taurus. And I never believed in, like, church. You know, I was never brought to church. So it's not that I didn't believe in it. It was just, it was never introduced to me. So I never went to church. I was never baptized, never Christianed. I grew up with my mom. You know, like, when I was little, my parents were together, but they split up when I was, like, really young. And so I was living with my mom and, you know, visiting my dad off and on. My Aunt Bridget is who I was named after. She always had, like, she was like the weird aunt, you know, like who I am now with my niece. But she always believed in magic, and she would always tell me, like, when I was 14, I would be going to the moon to be, like, initiated into this witch thing. And I was like, all right. And, you know, tell me crazy stuff like that. So as a kid, I did have, like, magic in my life. Like, I did believe in it. You know, I've always been able to find four-leaf clovers. My grandmother has always been able to find four-leaf clovers, and I feel like she passed that gift on to me, because it's something that other people just don't do. And, like, I literally can be walking and be like, oop, oop. And, you know, I don't know. It's just, like, everything in my life, throughout time, I do see, like, the magic that was there. I see, like, you know, the awareness to this other world was there. But because of society, because of people, because of how this world works, it got shut off for a while, you know? Like, I wasn't really fully embracing it. I wasn't paying attention to it. I went through a lot as a child, you know, like, my dad was an alcoholic. My mom had always had different substance abuse issues. And she would go back and forth, you know. She was never, like, a full-out addict until later. And, you know, both of my parents had their ups and downs, and they both, for, like, 10 years I was an only child, and so my parents both remarried, so I was always having, like, tons of Christmases and tons of this and tons of that. And I can always remember feeling like I never belonged anywhere. Like, I didn't feel like I belonged with my mom and my stepdad. I didn't feel like I belonged with my dad and my stepmom. I never felt like I belonged at any of the Christmas stuff. I always felt like I was the weird one that everybody felt bad for. You know, like, my stepdad's mother and father, like, his mother would give me gifts on Christmas, and it was always awkward. And then my parents all decided to start throwing more kids out after 10 years. So my mom had one, my dad had one, my mom had one, and my dad had one. And so then all of a sudden, I'm the big sister of 4 kids. And my mom got sick with cancer, and my dad, you know, was an alcoholic, and he went to jail. So I was always bouncing around, helping out, trying to take care of little kids as a kid myself. And, you know, the actions of my parents affected the people that they married. And over time, they ended up all getting divorced and separating and having their own crap go on. And then, like, I was, like, exiled from certain things early on, you know, like, when my siblings came out, like, my stepdad's mom, you know, really shifted her focus onto them. So that made me feel even more awkward, like I really didn't belong, because it was like, oh, my real grandkids are here, like, bye. And I know nobody meant to do that to me. Like, I'm not sitting here trying to sound like a victim. It's just how I felt as a child. And I find that a lot of people who identify with the term Starseed or Lightworker or Empath go through dynamics like this. So we're like the latchkey kids. We're the ones that, you know, our parents split up early. You know, you probably have siblings that, and that was something that got triggered at a real young age too. I remember my mom tried to have kids a few times, and she kept having miscarriages. And I remember one time she had gone really far along, and, like, we were all excited. I was going to be a big sister finally. And my aunt, one of my aunts, not my Aunt Bridget, another one, had brought me out on the porch and, like, well, my mom had a miscarriage, and so I was upset, and then my other aunt brought me outside onto the porch and was like, you do realize it wouldn't be your real brother or sister anyway. It would just be a half. And I was like, ugh. So even that, like, she took away that, like, feeling of belonging or having somebody that was, like, a part of me as well, and ruined it, because I had always felt alone. I had never felt like I belonged anywhere. And then, you know, even with a sibling, she was able to take that away from me, and I still felt weird and awkward about it after that point. So I do feel like we become the black sheep. And I don't feel like it's an intentional thing created by other people. I don't know why she would say that to a young child. You know, I was like 9 years old. But I mean, it was all for a purpose. It was all for a reason. I think we have to go through that seclusion or feeling that way so that we can identify with others who feel that way in this world, and we can help other people who feel secluded or left out or that they don't belong. And I mean, even to this day, I still feel that way. I never feel like I really belong anywhere. Even, like, this is my house, and, like, I finally feel like I belong here, but, like, I'm not 100% comfortable. Like, I've never been 100% comfortable anywhere I am. And it's because nobody understands me 100%. And that's a difficult way to be in this world, is to know that nobody really truly understands you. And the people who have always left. So that is something that we go through as well. And so, you know, I went through all that as a kid, feeling that way. My parents all separated, you know, at different points. They stayed together for a long time. Like, my mom was sick at different points. Like, she got sick in 2000, and I was, like, in junior high. And I remember when I went to high school, like, I went for my freshman year, and then my sophomore year, like, I skipped every day. Like, I just took the bus to the school, got off the bus, and went to my friend's house. And it was, like, a few months in that I finally was like, you know what, I'm not going back. So I told my mom I didn't want to go back, and I wanted to get my GED and start working full time. So she was like, okay. She didn't even argue with me. And I actually expected her to. I thought she was going to be like, you're an asshole, you're going. So I was all prepared to go. Like, and she was like, oh, okay. Then I was like, oh, shit. All right. So I guess I'm done. So I did that. And I'm like that. Like, if I say I want to do something and somebody doesn't fight me on it, like, I'm like, oh, all right, I guess I'm doing it. So I've tried to move away from that behavior since then. But yeah, so I left school in my sophomore year, and I got my GED. And I moved out when I was 15. So I'll back up for a minute. When I was 14, I met my first boyfriend. And, you know, it was weird the way we met. It was weird, like, his friend was dating my friend, and then my friend dated his friend, and so, like, him and I were the youngest. We'd have to, like, ride in a trunk together. You know, we'd always be squished somewhere together, but we were just happy to be around, and we were always around older kids. And you know, he was my first love, my first anything. And when he broke up with me, that, like, destroyed me. And I was like, I felt like I wasn't good enough, like something was wrong with me, because he went out with another girl, like, immediately, who had big boobs and a car, and she was older, and I was like, oh my god, like, what's wrong with me? And so from that moment on, I hated, like, my chest. I thought, like, you know, like, that rejection really stuck with me. And so I ended up dating somebody that, like, his cousin's best friend, so my ex's cousin's best friend, I started dating him. And it was like a rebound, and, like, I had rebounded too anyways. Like, I rebounded with this kid Steve that I had worked with, and, you know, broke his heart. And then I go with this other kid, and it was, like, almost like a revenge thing. And it was so stupid, because it was, like, he was not a nice person at all. But I was suffering. You know, I had a broken heart. My mother was sick, like, very sick. And she was in the hospital in isolation all the time. Like, I remember my stepdad was, like, trying to work, and, like, the kids were little. And then my dad was in jail, and my stepmom was alone. So those kids needed help. And it was like, I was just bouncing around all the time and never feeling like I really belonged anywhere. Never feeling like anybody really cared about me. Never feeling like I looked good enough or I was good enough. And so I got caught up in this dynamic, and I moved out into this house with that guy. For 6 years, I stayed with him. And he was physically abusive. Like, he would beat the shit out of me. And it was funny because I was thinking about that earlier, and I realize now how ingrained like things are to us through our genetic, like through our history. You know, because his dad, like, he used to tell me stories that like what his dad used to do to his mom, and he saw it, and so the stuff that he did to me, you know, didn't really compare to the stuff that he said he saw from his parents. But it still hurt, you know, he still hit me a lot. He did some fucked up shit to me that was like, oh my God. You know, like, even, like, if we were gonna have sex or something, like, he would do things that I didn't expect to be done, and he would think it was funny. I can remember, like, trying to, like, grab the phone to call for help, and him like rip the phone out of the wall, or like me opening the window so I can jump out and him like just grabbing me. And so that was a horrible situation, but I stayed there because I was not okay. Like, I didn't feel like I belonged, and like he would always, oh, I'm so sorry, I love you, and then it would just be over, and then it would go back and forth like that. And then we started drinking and hanging out with older kids, and then cocaine came into the mix. So I never really liked drinking, and everybody was always really drunk and doing the coke to stay awake. I would do the coke, and then I would like stay up all night and like clean and like walk around and get everybody's beer cans and just like not be able to sleep and be wicked uncomfortable, and I hated it. And then he became even more of an asshole. And at one point I started kickboxing, and I actually went up to like 165 pounds, and I like learned how to like defend myself, protect myself. And one night he had me, we had a mattress on the floor. He had me on the bed, and my lower half, like my lower half of my body was on the bed, and my upper half was on the floor, and he was like holding me down, and he was like hitting me back here. So I sat up with him, and I threw him through the closet, and the doors broke, and he went in, and then when he came out, I roundhouse kicked him in the head, and he smashed his head on the corner of the thing, and then he crawled out of the room, and he didn't come back for the whole night. And after that, he never hit me again for a long time. But I did end up leaving there because I couldn't stand the dynamic with the drugs, and like we were always fighting, and it was just verbal, like, bleh. So I ended up calling and going home. And now at this point, my mom's in remission, and I'm like 19. And my mom at this point was an addict, and I didn't know when I first moved home what she was doing. I knew she was prescribed to Percocets and Oxycontin because she had always been asking me if I knew people that would want them, because she was prescribed to so many, but I never put together that she was like actively using another type of drug and using the money from that to pay for that. So I remember the first night I was home, I couldn't sleep, and I told her that. So she gave me a Percocet 30, and because I was used to doing cocaine, I sniffed it. And you know, then like a week goes by, and you know, I had a migraine, and I was like, I have a wicked bad migraine. So she gave me an Oxycontin 80 milligram. And you know, from that point on, I really liked those, and I liked the way it made me feel. It numbed me, you know, it numbed all of that sadness. It numbed all the separation. I did have a boyfriend that came at that point that I stayed with for like 2 years. It may have even been longer. He was a really, really nice guy, but I didn't have that like in love with him thing. I mean, when I first met him, I loved him because he was so nice. But I wasn't like really attracted to him, and I was still unhealthy, and I was using different things at different times. He wasn't really aware of what I was doing. He was just too like, he just really loved me. He really cared about me and my family. And so then it got to the point where my mom, you know, my stepdad found out that she was abusing another drug, and so she wanted me to go with her because he wouldn't let her go out of the house alone. So I started going with her, and she introduced me to this and was like, oh, it's just like weed, here, try it. So we had our little run with crack, and I hated it. I couldn't stand it. But what would happen is we'd go out and, you know, we'd smoke, and then on the way home she'd have her Percocets and her Oxycontin to like come down with. It's because the coke was like, and then the pills would bring you like back down. So by the time all of that shit's over, I'm full-blown addicted to these pills. And I start being at this point where I can't afford them, and we are running out because she's only getting so many, and now she's addicted to them too. Because at one point I pulled over at the McDonald's in Kingston and was like, you know what, fuck it, I'm throwing all of this shit out. And I did. I threw it all out, and neither one of us ever touched it again. But we still had the pills, so now we're both using the pills as our coping mechanism and how we're going to survive. And I'm literally addicted to it. And so I didn't realize that that's what happened. I didn't know that, like, if I didn't have it, I was going to, like, be physically ill to the point where, like, you will do anything to get more. So my getting that more, I was like, all right, let me call up my ex, because I knew he was still in drugs. I did not know that he had now, upgraded to heroin. So when I called him looking for pills, he couldn't get them, but he could get heroin. And my mom was like, get it, because we were both very sick. So I went and I got it, and the first time I ever did it was with my mom in my car at the mall parking lot near where I live. And it was 10 times cheaper, and it was easy to get, so I started getting that with my ex. And then I moved in with him in Weymouth, and we weren't even like together on like a I love you type of thing. We weren't having sex. It was all about like just scheming and getting drugs. So, we were like always like hitting his mom up for money, or hitting this person up for money, or doing this for money, or doing that for money. Like we would like get shit and sell it, or we would like just, I don't even know, like every single day we always came up with enough money to be able to survive that day and have our drugs. And that didn't last very long. I was only there for like maybe 2 months. We never paid rent. We had like Rent-A-Center, fucking all this shit that we never paid for, and it was just all about the drugs. And one night I called my mom from the bathroom, and I was like, can you please come get me? And he heard me. And he lost his shit, and he came through that bathroom, and at this point I was like 90 pounds because I lost all my weight. I wasn't eating, I wasn't sleeping, all I was doing was drugs. And when he came through, he attacked me, he was trying to kill me, he was choking me. My mom's on the other phone, she was on the phone like hearing all of this, so she hung up and called 911. And then they came and they took him, and I literally took everything I could in my car and left and never went back. And I ended up going to detox and getting clean for a while. I did really good. I was working, I was staying sober. And then I relapsed with pills. It was like, I think like Vicodin or something. And that brought me back to heroin. But, different people. And that was one thing that sucked about like restaurants, is like any restaurant people work in, there seems to always be somebody there that can get you a pill or offers something that you really don't want. And I mean, I did good for a long time, and when I started working at Red Robin in Plymouth, I met a girl there that was on heroin, and it's almost like they recognize each other, and they're like, hey, you want some? And I was like, sure. So, I went back down that path, and then I ended up meeting Jay, and Jay and I were together for a long time, and he had his own issues, like emotionally and spiritually and all of that. And like I'd never had a spiritual awakening or anything like that. I was just working, buying drugs, always making sure I had money for drugs. And I was what they called a functioning addict. Like nobody ever really knew. I'd always like get promoted to a manager. I was always able to like manifest money for what I wanted in one way or another. No, I didn't have sex for money, but like I would always be able to like scheme, steal, or figure it out, like, or even make enough. Like I would work like doubles, triples, how I would work as much as I needed in order to sustain what I needed. So when I met Jay, like I was sober when I met him, and then we started drinking and going out and doing things, and then we started getting like pills here and there, and then we were doing the OCs together, and I got pregnant. And he really wanted the baby. And I did at first, but I didn't, because I never really wanted kids, because I saw what I went through, and like I saw what my sisters went through, my brother went through, with like people splitting up, and I was like, I don't want to do that to somebody. I really did love Jay, like with all my heart. And we had a connection that was unlike anybody else. Like we could sit together and draw, we could sit together and like, listen to the same music and laugh and have fun, and it was just a great connection. But when the drugs came in, it destroyed it. And then when I got pregnant, I ran. Like I left there. and I moved out again in one day. I just took everything I could while he was at work, and I left him in the apartment in Plymouth. And I went home and got an abortion. And after that, he told me that he was going to kill himself if I didn't come back, that he couldn't live without me. And I was like, no, you won't. And we did have, like, a really strong love for each other. So, like, anytime we would, like, run into each other, which would happen all the time, we would end up back together. And then, like, we'd split up and back together, split up, back together, split up. And eventually he died. And I blamed myself. Like, I really thought it was my fault that he died because he warned me. And it was, like, a few days before he died that I ran into him at Wendy's in Plymouth. And he looked horrible, and I gave him a ride somewhere, and he, again, was like, I'm going to die. And I was like, no, you're not. And then he did. And I was actually doing good at that time. Like, I wasn't doing heroin. I wasn't doing, like, drugs like crazy. Like, I was drinking here and there and being stupid and partying, but I wasn't doing heroin, and I wasn't doing perks and anything like that. When he died, as soon as he died, I found out, and I was like, trying to find anything I could. I ended up going to his wake on a bunch of Vicodin again. And I remember sitting there, like, nodding out at the place and just, like, being miserable and not wanting, and feeling like it was my fault, and feeling like his family was blaming me, and feeling like everybody hated me. And his family invited me to come to the house and get stuff of his because they knew that we loved each other and that the only reason we weren't together is because of the drugs. And so that really messed me up for a long time, and I did stay on drugs for a while after that. And then I met my ex from, 10 years back. So when I met my ex that I just left recently, it's been over a year, I was not in a good place. He was actually dating somebody that I had grown up with that was, like, my friend. And we actually, like, him and his friend lived next door to the house that I grew up in. And then his girlfriend lived on the other side. So, like, here's my house, and here's her. Her boyfriend's best friend lives here on the other side. So we all decided, like, we're going to, like, double date. So I started dating this guy, and he's over here dating her. And we go out together and do stuff. And then, like, and I'm dating this guy. And it's funny, because while I was dating this guy, my first boyfriend ever ran into us when we were out at a bar nearby. And it was like, oh my God, I can't believe it's you. And I, like, run back and tell this guy all about it. And he's like, kicked me out of his house that night. Was like, fuck you, I don't want to talk to you. And I was like, and I think it's because he could tell, like, how, like, I was, like, so excited. Because that was the guy that broke my heart. And I still loved him. Like, I still cared about him. So eventually I go out with that guy again. And I screwed that up because I was drinking and being stupid. And, like, I went on a booze cruise with him and got shattered. Like, I drank, like, 7 or 8 drinks. And I was able to hold it good and not be an idiot. But the next day, it was like, hey, you want to go to the beach? And I got, like, a big twisted iced tea on the way there. And then I'm out in the sun and I'm already dehydrated. I still have the alcohol in me from the night before. I'm not used to drinking like that. And I drink this big thing. And the last thing I remember is, like, talking to this kid about somebody that I had problems with back when I was in, the first time I broke up with this guy. He had a friend that, like, came after me and wanted to beat my ass because we broke up. And so I don't really remember the rest of that day. I just remember, like, this kid had brought it up and I was like, oh, I'll kick your ass. And, like, I was doing, like, my kickboxing moves or whatever. And I don't really remember. I just remember, like, somebody grabbing me at one point and telling me to stop. And then I remember being in the truck crying. And then I don't remember how I got out of the place because my car didn't have reverse at the time. So I don't know how I backed up. And I drove from the beach all the way to the exit where I lived, blacked out. I didn't come to until I was passing through 4 lanes of traffic that were like, rah! And I was like, oh shit. And I'm in a bikini. And I got to my house that day and I had, like, a broken rib and I was just a mess. Like, I was really messed up. But needless to say, the ex never talked to me again after that. Not for a long time anyway. So then my friend next door, her boyfriend starts messaging me all the time. and asking how he can fix the relationship with my friend. And I'm like, I don't know. And the whole time they were together, she always told me how much she hated him. She couldn't stand him. She wanted to get away from him. He wouldn't let her leave. And then they got engaged, and then she got pregnant, and it was like crazy. But like the engagement and the pregnancy came later. In the beginning, it was always like, I hate him, I don't want to be with him. And then he supposedly won $4 million or whatever, and the relationship shifted a bit. During that whole time beforehand, he was messaging me and talking to me. And now I'm back on drugs because I'm alone and I'm miserable and I'm like, ugh. So his attention was basically connected with money. Like, he would like come and give me money to talk to me and hang out with me. And then he asked me out for dinner one night. So I go to dinner, and we ended up hooking up. And we ended up having sex. And then we kept having sex and having sex and having sex. And then I fell in love with him. And I think it was like I fell in love with the idea of somebody stable, somebody that like seemed like they could help me like get back into that energy, because I was a very codependent person. Like, I felt like I needed somebody else to make me complete. And he was like the first person that like really caught my attention since Jay. And I was like, all right. So I knew in order to be with him, I would have to get sober. So I went to the methadone clinic, and I started there, and it was like a 6-month program where you can go up as high as you want in milligrams. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to stop at 50 milligrams. And then they wean you down a milligram every other day for 6 months. And then you're off. And then you're good. I mean, some people are, some people aren't. Some people go way up, some people stay on it for years. Like, my mother was on the methadone clinic, and that was one of the reasons why I went to that methadone clinic as well, is because my mother had gone to it, and that got her off of all the other stuff. But what she did was go way, way up on her dose, and go there every day for years. And then she eventually got to have, like, her take-homes and stuff like that. But for me, I just went there every day for 6 months until I was done, and that was it. I did relapse one time after. I went and I got some, and I was so sick from it that I will never, ever touch it. This has been over 11 years now. Like, I promise you, I swear to God, I will never touch it again. The experience that I had that day, I was still before my awakening, but I swear to God, somebody was there with me and protected me. And there were other times that I tried to kill myself. It was around the time that I had seen my first boyfriend, and like that other guy broke up with me. I found it was, I don't know if it was before or after. I think it might have been after. Yeah, it was after. So after all that stuff went down and I was alone, I started using again. And then I found that there was a gun under my mom's bed, and I pulled it out, and I was like, oh, so I was going to shoot myself. So nothing. There was no bullet. So I have a mental breakdown in my mom's room. And they come and find me, and they bring me to the hospital, and the hospital puts me in a insane place for a little while. So for like 2 weeks, I was locked up in the Wyndham Memorial Hospital in the psych ward because I was suicidal. And when I came out of there, they had given me like 10 different types of medicines. They gave me trazodone for sleep, Seroquel for sleep, Seroquel for the day, Buspar for the day, Celexa for my mood, lithium for like an equalizer, and Subutex to keep me off of drugs. So I'm doing all of that, and I had just gotten my prescriptions filled. I went out drinking. I come home, and I was like, you know what, fuck it. So I had a big thing of vitamin C, and I took every one of those pills and drank the whole bottle of vitamin C down, and every single one of those pills, I wrote a note, left it at the foot of my bed, and passed out. I woke up 2 days later. The note was still at the foot of the bed. My mother was downstairs underneath me in the living room, because she was now living in the living room, because actually the day that I came back from the beach, my stepdad had done something. Like, apparently I was up in my room, passed out, and my mother was like, don't go up there, blah, 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 and he did, and ever since then, she never went back upstairs. She always stayed down in the living room, and they, like split from that point. So that was something else that I went through. Feeling guilty for that. Like, and why should I feel guilty? I didn't do anything. I don't even know what was actually done. All I know is that, like, my mom said something to my sister told me, and it's just whatever. So all of this stuff's going down. I tried to kill myself. Nobody found out, and it was actually great because it was like my 2 days off of work. So I woke up from that, and again, like that other time when I had relapsed that one time, I woke up from that, and I feel like literally somebody was there with me that was like, you're not gonna die. Like, I should have died. Like, one of those prescriptions should have been enough to kill me. Never mind all of them. And, you know, the time before, like, when I was, like, basically overdosing at my job, like, I went to the place that I was working, kicked everybody out, and laid down on the floor and basically just laid there until I could come back into consciousness. But I swear to God, there were people there with me, but there wasn't people there with me. And so, after all of that, you know, me and this guy get together, the one that had been with my friend, they broke up. So now him and I are together. Now, that was after months of me and him just, like, seeing each other. You know, they'd split up, he'd come see me, he'd go back to her, come back. But really, really horrible. I always felt like I was just being used, and, you know, but I was like, I just wanted to be loved, and I wanted him to love me, so I did everything I could to make myself better for him. And he was a horrible guy. Like, he wasn't a good guy, and he was, like, using me and using her. And he had already done this with her, with his ex. So he had already had a girl that he had been with and had a kid. And then he got with her and had a kid. And then he got with me and had those other 2 kids. And so when I was with him, I did really good. You know, I stayed sober. I never touched heroin again. He would come home occasionally with, like, different stuff and, like, want to give me like a pill, but he would be like very weird because he's a narcissist. So he'd be like, oh, I got these, and, you know, like, here, you can have one, but that's it. And, like, just be like a control freak about stuff. So I mean, yes, I did do stuff here and there, but it was always controlled, and it was always him just kind of like trying to fuck with me, I guess. And I ended up pregnant again, and he basically told me that if I had the kid, we weren't going to be together. So I ended up having another abortion. And I think I actually had 2 with him. And I kind of, like, blocked it out, you know what I mean? Like, I just couldn't deal with it. And the reason why I'm talking about that is because the other day when I received that letter from my ex-friend, she had brought up women's rights and, like, why don't I care more about women's rights? And then had said, where would you be without abortion? And I was like, all right. And I know that these people are telling other people stuff about me, and, like, you know, saying stuff about my past, like, because of all that stuff with my mom. You know, I had opened up and told people this in healing sessions. And I don't keep this a secret. And a big thing, too, is, like, my mom's gone now. Like, I didn't want to come out and say all this stuff and like, hurt her. And I don't want to hurt her. I don't blame her. You know, I am a person with free will. I could have said no. You know, I could have known better, but I didn't know better. And she was a sick person. So I'm not trying to, like, bring my mother down. I'm not trying to make other people sound like bad people. I'm just explaining where I came from. Because this is the worst of it, you know? This is the bad shit that I've been through, you know, and there's other stuff in there that I, you know, have chosen to not go into, but a lot of stuff has happened in my life, and I've overcome all of it and risen to this moment. But for her to be like, say that to me, I was like, oh my God. And then I found out that somebody else that I had told this stuff to was like, why is she so upset about her mother passing? Her mother, like, they didn't have a good relationship. Yeah, we did have a good relationship. My mother was my best friend. My mother and I were together from day one. You know, like, when I was little and my dad left because he was drinking all the time, like, she and I were it. And was she, like, mother of the year? No. But was she always a mess? No. She got really sick, and they prescribed her to a bunch of medicine that made her even more sick, that made her start abusing other drugs and having a bunch of issues. But she didn't remain that way. Like, I mean, she did have her issues all the way up into the end of her life, but she was in chronic pain. She was in chronic illness. The stuff that they did to her when she was sick with cancer destroyed the mom I knew and brought back this other version of her, and then brought me the addict version of her, and then brought me, like, a clean, older version of her. And then at the end there, like, her mind was so messed up because she had COPD. She had, like, you know, all of her bones were brittle. Like, she had the body of an 80-year-old at the age of 53. She had the mentality of an 80-year, you know, she was like, it was almost like Alzheimer's, but it was from all the times of losing oxygen. The hospitals messed up so many times with her, and that was why every time my mother got sick, I would go sit at the hospital for hours and make sure that the people were listening and doing what they were supposed to do, because every single time I left, something would happen and I'd get called back there. Or they would like put her into a coma. She was in a steroid-induced myopathy at one point where they just destroyed all of her function. And when she came back from that, it took her forever to be able to even eat by herself, wipe, dress, drive. And she overcame that. And then she got sick again. And she never came back from that one. Because they pumped her with so much medicine in that hospital, they killed the rest of her kidney function. So from that day on, she had to have dialysis 3 times a week. So my mother's life was a constant struggle with health in all areas. When I was living with that guy, she came and lived with me. And he actually went to jail for stealing a car. And then when he came out, she was still with us. And I started a class action suit for her against Monsanto. And eventually, money came from that. And she was able to get away from my stepdad and move into a trailer because that's what she had always wanted. So she was able to get there and get out of there, and like that helped a lot. And at one point when I first came into this awakening, she did come to my events. Like I'd pay her to drive me to an event, or I'd pay her to like help me set up the event, and then she'd stay and be a part of it. So she did really good for that point too. It wasn't until she had like a COPD attack and they had been focusing on like getting her to breathe and getting her lungs to expand, it wouldn't do it, it wouldn't expand. So they ended up flying her up to Boston, and as soon as she got to Boston, they were like, oh, like that's not the problem. A piece of her colon had died, and she was like septic and blowing up, so no matter what they were doing to her lungs, she wasn't going to live. So they wiped out the rest of her kidney function. And so now she's sick again, and so now she needs a caregiver and all that. But that, I just want people to realize, like, my mother was sick. I don't blame her for anything I went through. I'm just saying, like, a lot of the stuff I did go through, this is how it happened. This is why. This is it, And the times that I chose to not have children, like, there was drug use involved. Or there was, like a serious fear involved in there. And was I proud of it? No. Did I cry? Yes. Was I traumatized by the one when I wanted it? Yeah. I was very traumatized by that. Like, that was the worst experience of my life, and I never, ever want to go through it again. And, it's really sucks when you go to, like, a medium, and they're like, who's this little kid? And and you don't want to tell people because you don't want to look like an asshole, but, yeah, that's my truth. And, I feel like me putting it out there kind of negates all these people talking badly about me and saying stuff like, why does she care about her mom? Her mom was an asshole. Oh, you should care more about women's rights because where would you be without abortion? Where would I be without abortion? I'd probably have the kid that I wanted. You know what? That's where I'd be. And I'd probably, maybe Jay would still be alive. That's where I'd be. Okay? So, like, I don't look at those things as, like my saving grace or whatever. I just look at it like it wasn't a right time. I wasn't going to bring a child into this world when I was on drugs, and I wasn't going to bring a child into this world with somebody that had already like walked out of 2 relationships with people who gave him children, and one of them is like severely like screwed up. And I don't think it's because, like he was diagnosed with autism, but his father doesn't pay any attention to him. He doesn't care about what he eats. He doesn't care about if he sleeps. He doesn't, like, he'll just put him in the room with a TV and be like, huh. And if he's flipping out and having like a meltdown, like, he doesn't do anything. When the child was living with me and him in our home, and we actually had a normal home, he did his best. He was on a schedule, on a routine. I could tell by his cry if it was diaper rash or a stomach ache. But when we moved out of there and lost our house and moved into his mother's basement, the child was always upstairs, and I couldn't stand going upstairs because his whole family was narcissists. So the child really suffered and like went back and reverted back to like not talking and being nonverbal and not being treated the way he should be and given all this food he shouldn't be eating. It was a horrible, toxic environment. But it was in that house, living with that guy, when he went to jail the first time, I started having my spiritual awakening. That's the same time I was like doing this stuff for my mom and like trying to get her help and trying to find me help, trying to manifest the money that I needed in order to survive, because he wouldn't let me work. He was so toxic. When I first met him, like everything was great. He was always trying to offer me stuff and like buy me gifts and give me things that I had never had before. And I was working full-time at Percy's Place in Plymouth. I was like a manager there, and I had all my siblings working there for me. And actually, like, when I first started working there was when I had first gone to the methadone clinic. And so I'd go to the methadone clinic every morning and bring all my brothers and sisters, and then we'd go to work. And so by the time I was done with the clinic, you know, I'm completely sober and good, and everything's great. Me and Jamie together, and everything's going forward. He started talking to this girl that I was working with there because he was going to get her a car. Come to find out, he ended up giving her that car, and he bought her like breast implants. He took her to Florida. He bought her a puppy. He put her in an apartment in Plymouth that his parents owned, and he was like living two lives. And I was living in the house by myself, like, you know, with him and going to work, and I knew something was going on. And then I started putting the pieces together and figuring out what he was actually doing, and I was like, oh, okay. And instead of leaving, I actually did leave, but he would like chase me down and get me to come back and fall into the whole trap. And then I got to this point where I was too embarrassed to go back to that place because I didn't want to be faced with all these people who knew what was going on, because everybody knew. So I quit my job, and now I'm without a job. I'm without an income. And he sold my car. So when I first met him, I came to the relationship with the car. And he ended up taking it and then giving me a different car. But then he took that car and sold it to a cop, a state cop friend of his, without ever telling me. Like, he kept telling me it was down and it was getting fixed and they were bringing it back. And he'd let me drive one of his vehicles because that's what he was always having vehicles. So I thought he was working. In reality, what he was doing is he was stealing money from some woman that was down the street that had been friends with him, and he was like, whatever, screwing her over. And that's why he's in jail now. And that's why I'm out now, because when I was with him, like, I couldn't have a job because if I was going to work as a waitress, he was like, you're going to meet somebody or you're going to go back on drugs. So he wouldn't let me get, like, a job. He wouldn't let me, like, go out. Like, I mean, I could go out, but he would make it horrible. Like, he would be like, where are you? What are you doing? You're a cheater, blah, 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 and just make it miserable, so I didn't even want to be out. So I didn't have, like, any friends. The only time I would ever go out anywhere was with my mom, and even if I went out with my mom, he would destroy that. And then he started, like, separating me from my family. And then at one point, he told my sister he'd give her a car if she gave him a blowjob. So he gave her the car, and she didn't give him a blowjob. He went back and took the car, and, like, all this drama came out of that. And I still stayed because I didn't have anywhere to go. I had nowhere to go. And then he started bringing the puppies into the mix. And so that was even more of like this thing, like, nobody's ever going to want you with all those dogs. You're never ever going to be able to find a place to live with all those dogs. You're basically stuck. And then when he came out of jail the first time, we lost our house because while he was gone, I was giving $2,000 a month to his ex. The house was in her name. The mortgage was in her name. So here you go. Here's $2,000 every month. She pocketed it. She never paid the rent, so she let the house go into foreclosure. So he comes out of jail, and I had been fighting in court against her because what she did. The judge ended up saying she was taking it under advisement and never came back with a judgment for a year. So I got us this whole year to live there for free. We could have ended up having the house, but he just never wanted to do anything about it. So we ended up moving into his parents' basement. But it was in that house that I started my spiritual awakening. And it was like, it kept going into the basement. And it really is a result of like just everything sucking, you know, like I had nowhere to go. I had nothing I could do. It was like, I was like a prisoner, and I hated it. And I hated my life, and I hated myself enough to be able to just like accept that, you know. And there'd be times that like I'm leaving and I'd pack up all my stuff. And it was like a joke at that point, because he's like, where are you going? He knew I really didn't have anywhere to go. I didn't have a car to get there. I didn't have anything I could bring. Like, I had nowhere to bring all my pets. So I was stuck. And I remember the night, like, all of a sudden one day I had, like, this buzz go through my head. It sounded like a bumblebee went in one ear and out the other. And it, like, knocked me off my feet onto the stairs. And after that, I had all this information in my head about like meteors and stuff, and it was like I just remember feeling like I was like stoned or something. But at this point there was no drugs, no alcohol, nothing in my life. It was just me. And I was like, why do I know this stuff? And I would be like talking to my mom about it, because my mom was always staying over because she was trying to get away from my stepdad, hence me doing all of that stuff with her to get her trailer and get away from there. That didn't come for years later, but it did eventually come, and she got out of there. So she's over, and I'm like talking to her about all this crazy stuff, and then I start Googling this crazy stuff because I'm like, is this stuff true? Like, why is this in my head? And like everything I looked up, I would find answers on. You know, like, yes, an asteroid is this, or yes, this happens when that happens. It was just like crazy, weird crap that like I was never taught. And then I started realizing like things like Archangel Michael. Like my whole life I had called on Archangel Michael when I was scared at night. But again, nobody had taught me who he was. I never went to church. And I was like, why did I always know who that was? And then like, I'm having all these questions come into my head. And then like going outside at night and seeing stars. And seeing Orion's belt. And then realizing like, I have always known who Orion's belt was. Why is that? And then, you know, all of this other stuff. And then I'm buying telescopes and I'm outside at night and I'm talking to stars. And the stars are talking back. They weren't like, hey, Bridget, what's up? But I could say like, show me yes, just like you do with a pendulum. And the star would move. And then I'd say, show me no, and it would move. And I was like, all right. So then I'd start asking questions and get my answers. And then I started like going on to Google and YouTube and finding other people out there who were going through similar stuff. And then I stumbled into the Starseed information. You know, the first thing I saw was 10 Signs of a Spiritual Awakening. I was like, what? What's this? So watch that video. Every single one of them. I was like, all right, I guess this is a spiritual awakening. So then I start looking up the Starseed stuff. And it all resonated. It was all like, yes, yes, yes. From the time that I was a kid feeling like I didn't belong, to the latchkey stuff, to the like, you know, narcissist coming in, you know, every single person in my life, every relationship, everything I ever did, like it all just made sense. All of a sudden it just all was like, oh my God. And like, even like the drug use, like as a starseed, as an empath, we feel everything of the collective. And when you're feeling everybody's shit, you want to numb yourself. So yeah, you either drink, have sex, become addicted to gambling, or you do some hardcore drugs, or you just do something that's unhealthy and like is a distraction. For me, it happened to be heroin. For others, it can be alcohol. For others, it can be, you know, like it's all different types of things. So I had gone through all of that, and then I go into this part where I'm like downloading all this information and figuring out who the Pleiadians are and figuring out who the Syrians are and figuring out all of this stuff. And, you know, going outside and communicating with them one-on-one, meditating every single night, putting headphones in. Like, I remember him being pissed because he would always, like, every single night, it was like expected that I was supposed to shower, get into bed, do his thing, and go to sleep. And it wasn't sex. So that stopped. I stopped doing that, and I started listening to meditations. And he was like, ah! And that's when he really started like going out and cheating on other. And I was like, I don't even care, because at least he doesn't want to touch me. So I was like separating from him at that point. And that went on for years. Like, we did not have sex. We did, like, I mean, we did a few times, but it was like, I didn't really want to. He didn't even really want to. He would like ask me to like do something for him over anything else, and that still triggers me. Like, I know I'm like whatever, but it's just a very like demeaning thing. And I felt like I was a piece of shit, like I was just there for that. And that's how I was treated for a long time. And then I started looking into like schizophrenia and like bipolar, and am I just crazy? And everything I kept finding was like, no, you're not crazy. And then I started looking into my narcissist. Is there something wrong with me on that level? And it's like, the first thing is like, if you ask yourself that question, no, you're not. So I was like, okay, I guess not. So what it really was that I was having a spiritual awakening. So then I started Googling crazy stuff like my birthday and, you know, Taurus, Pleiadian, blah. And then I found Lavendar's website, where it was like, and this is after all this other synchronicity, you know, like I'm listening to channelings, I'm listening to readings, I'm listening to, you know, signs and symptoms and synchronicity and this and that, and what's a chakra and energy work and intention and healing. And it was like crazy. And during all this time too, I'm writing. I have notebooks and notebooks and notebooks of like crazy ass shit that was like, really, if anybody found it and read it, would be like, this bitch is crazy. But it was just me, like, documenting the stuff that resonated. And it was, like, everything I looked at, everywhere I went, like, online, anything I looked into, it was like, oh my God, I need to know that, I need to know that, I need to know that. It was like I needed to know everything right away. And it was like, but I did know everything. And it was like I was getting confirmed on the outside of all the stuff that I already had inside. And so all of that went on for a while. I kept finding more information and more stuff that resonated. One of the biggest things for me was when I found Lavendar's website and the Pleiadian lineup information. And so my whole life, my mother always said, you were due on the 17th, born on the 18th, a minute away from the 19th. And the Pleiadian lineup on this website, she's like, yeah, the Pleiadian lineup, blah, blah, blah. This woman had gone and traveled. Every single person that she met had happened to be born during these 2 times. And she received information about it, and it's like, these 2 times of the year, we're aligned in such a way that the Pleiades is, like, directly with us on Earth here. And so, at that time, there's, like, special projects or special things that come in, and you can come in with certain markings on your birth natal chart that Lavendar reads. But when I'm reading this website, it's like, May 17th, 18th, 19th, and I was like, and it's an all black and white website with red 17, 18, 19. And it was like, that was one of those final things for me that was like, all right, well, that's another fucking, like, confirmation on it. And in the beginning, I didn't want to tell anybody. I was like, this is nuts. Like, you know, I remember telling my mom and, like, my ex and, like, my family, but they were all like, yeah, okay. They didn't really get it. And I wasn't finding anybody out there, you know, and I wasn't allowed to have Facebook at the time. And then I started teaching myself how to build websites because I was like, fuck it, I'm going to build a website. I'm going to find a way to make money. Because he wasn't letting me get out of the house. He wasn't letting me do anything to, like, have a normal job. So I was like, I'm going to get a job and I'm going to start doing this and making this happen. So I started learning all of that stuff at the same time. So I'm, like, listening to channeling, working on websites, designing, and all this crap, and, like, learning search engine optimization and learning all of the back end stuff and learning how to promote your work and blah, 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 blah. And that's when he finally let me get Facebook, because I was like, I need to have a Facebook in order to promote this stuff so I can make money. And he was like, whatever. So he let me do it. So then I start looking for other people like me, like other starseeds, other empaths, other light workers, Pleiadians. And I kept looking for, like, groups on Facebook that had them. I could never find any. And, you know, I went through this for a while, and I was, like, listening to stuff, and I remember I used to listen to Larry Locken and, like, the Pleiadian talk, and his story really resonated for me with, like, the light ships and the stuff outside at night, like, the information and just different things, and, like, having problems in the past with addictions and, you know, struggling in life, never feeling like you fit in. And so then eventually I found the Pleiadian group on Facebook, and at this point there's, like, 30,000 members in it. I was like, what the fuck? Where was this when I was checking, like, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago? It was like it appeared out of nowhere. And it's, like, full of people. So then I started interacting with these people. And Larry Locken was in the group. And he starts interacting with me. And he's like, dude, you're totally a starseed. Like, you're going to be, like, famous. Like, you are a channel, blah, blah, blah. Like, he called stuff out then that I was like, yeah, right. Like, this is before any of my training, before any of it. And, like, I never thought that I would be somebody that would, like, help others. I never thought I'd be reading for others. I never thought that I would, like, do healings for others. Like, I was always like, fuck you. I ain't fucking touching you. I don't give a fuck about, like, I really didn't. Like, I never felt that way. And, like, still, I'm a very sarcastic person. My personality is, like, rough, okay? Like, I come off, like, here I am. But I also have this softness inside of me. And I try to, like, because I've been through so much, you know, like, I've been raped, I've been molested, I've been through abortions, I've had addictions, I've been hit, I've been, you know, physically, like, emotionally torn down, abused on all these different levels. I've never felt like I fit in, so I've been there, I get it, you know, and I'm sure there's stuff I'm forgetting. Like, I did write things down to hopefully remember, but, you know, I know that it's hard to remember everything, and it doesn't really matter. But I wanted to put this out there and get people to understand, like, it doesn't matter who you are, where you came from, or what you've done in the past. It matters who you are in this moment. And you get to decide who you are in this moment, every moment. And you get to continue to ripple that out there. So you can overcome any obstacle. And if you're stuck in a relationship with a narcissist, if you're somebody who's suffering with addiction, if you're somebody who's had a past of, like, you know what, I had an abortion, don't hold on to that. Those are pieces of the past. Those are things that you went through. And you know what? If somebody wants to judge you on it, or like throw it in your face, or tell other people things about you, if you didn't have such a great childhood, if your dynamics with your mother weren't really like a nurturing, loving situation, oh well. If your, you know, father was an addict at one point, like an alcoholic, whatever, you know, he's not the same person anymore. He came into my life as my ex was going out of my life. So, you know, when I was in that, we had moved into that little like one room apartment at his mother's house, and we were there for 4 years. And for those 4 years, this thing really took off for me. This is when I started like finding other people in my area, and that's when I started working for a place nearby me. And I was like, hey, I can build you a website. And she was like, all right, we'll barter. So I ended up building her a website, and then I ended up like doing all of her events, and then like adding to the website and adding to this and adding to that, and going to her place all the time when she wasn't there, and, you know, doing events of my own, being there for other people's events, cleaning the place, helping every time the place blew up. You know, it was like one thing after another, and I wasn't being treated equally. You know, I was doing a lot, and like every time I was supposed to receive something, I wouldn't receive it. It was like I was supposed to get my Reiki 1, Reiki 2, Reiki Master. And then I started doing the new paradigm. I was supposed to get both of those. And then I did like other stuff. I was supposed to have like an animal communication class and this class and that class. And those things never happened. But I was still doing my part of the work. And I was still paying 30% to that person to use the space. So the energy got really unfair. And this person would notice too. Like they would feel me starting to be like, what the fuck, I'm leaving. And be like, oh, I'm sorry. And bring me back in. And it was because I was still an unhealthy person. I was used to those type of dynamics. I was used to people walking all over me. I didn't know my worth. I didn't see any value in myself. I wasn't placing good value on the work I was doing. You know, people don't build websites for $200. People don't build websites for $500. People don't build websites for $800. People build websites for a lot more. And people don't charge $10 or $15 an hour to do the work I was doing. People charge like $90, $100 an hour to do the work that I was doing. And so it was really unfair. So I went through all of that there, but I do like that I went there because it brought me into this stuff like with, you know, the healing aspect. You know, I went into the Reiki 1. I hated Reiki 1 because of all the limitations and all the bullshit that was with it. But then when I found the new paradigm, I was like, okay, this makes sense. So here I am, I get into this energy work, and it's all about healing yourself. And I did that for a while. And then I started, you know, being introduced to the cards. And I started working with the cards. And I forgot, like, during that time of my awakening, like, I was drawing and I was writing and I was doing all this stuff, but I wasn't really aware of what I was doing. I was channeling. And so, like, my ability to draw increased a lot. Like, I can always draw, you know, like, I've always been able to draw. I've always been very artistic and creative. But when I really, like, start tuning in and like, channeling, my energy and, like, my work becomes a lot better. So that was something that shifted. And then the writing. I've written since I was a kid. You know, I've got notebooks and notebooks and journals. And it was always, even as a kid, like, I never believed, like, the society bullshit. I can remember, like, them telling me, like, in school that, you know, pyramids were built by dudes with ropes, and I was like, are they fucked? I never believed that stuff. And then even, like, the stuff I would write in my journal being, like, I think I was, like, 9 or 10, and just be like, why do we go to school? So that we can get a job, so that we can pay for stuff that we don't even really, like, want. Like, why can't we just live and, like, everybody has what they need? And, you know, like, having that understanding at a very young age that society's conditioning and all of that is bullshit. Did I fall into a lot of it? Of course. You know, like, do I have ego? Yeah, we all do. Do I want to look a certain way? Unfortunately. Do I still have like body issues? Yes. But I love my body right now. Like, this is like the happiest I've ever been, and it's a result of doing this work. And it's a result of getting rid of the people in my life who were not valuing me, who were abusing me, who were hurting me, who were taking advantage of me. And it seems like there's been an awful lot of them in my life over and over and over. So through this work, through this awakening, we can overcome that type of stuff. And I feel like I'm here in this moment now because of that stuff. Because I realized, like, oh, you know what? That's not a way I want to be treated. And so then I would create boundaries with people. And, like, people don't like it when you take your energy and your intention and you put it back on yourself, particularly when they were on the receiving end of it for so long. You know, like, with that place that I was at, when I was having all that imbalance, I ended up finding another place that was like, oh, well, how can I help you get away from there? And I was like, I don't know, I could do what I do for you here and you pay me. But even then, you know, because I didn't have value on myself, I didn't ask for the proper amount of, like, compensation. And I went way over what was expected, you know, like, I was, there's no real way for me to, like, tally up, like, me sharing posts, you know? So I wouldn't charge for that type of stuff. And I would just, like, share posts for all the other people that were intertwined with this community. And I was, like, supporting and promoting and working and, you know, changing websites and doing other websites and doing events and doing Facebook stuff and doing, you know, email shout outs and blasts and promoting the hell out of this other place after leaving the other one. And after I left that other place, it closed and, like, is gone now. And then I go to this other place and I start focusing all my energy and attention there and teaching the person that was there all of the stuff that I knew. You know, like when you should post, what you should post, you know, how to do it the right way, how to make the most of it make sense, how to build a website, like how to edit the website, how to make memes, like everything that I do for other people and should get paid a lot of money for, I taught this person. And then I noticed the energy between us shifting when I started to take my focus and needing to place it on me. Because when I got away from my ex, you know, like in the beginning, for the first 3 years, I was with him. So I didn't have, like, a lot of bills. I didn't have a lot of overhead. It was just me and the dogs at home all the time. So when I would go out to do an event or I'd go out to do a healing, it was all income. Like, it didn't really matter. So when I was building websites and stuff like that, it was just, oh, great, I have money. But I didn't have any goals. I didn't give a shit. I didn't have a bank account because that guy that I was with destroyed them. He destroyed my credit. He would open things up in my names, promise he was going to pay them, never pay them. He had done stuff with my bank, so, like, it was overdrawn and I just never had the money to fix it. Like, I literally would cry because he would always promise he was going to take care of all this stuff, but never let me help to take care of it. And, like, even, like, stuff in the house, like, he would never help with trash, never help with dishes, never help with food, never help with the dogs. It was just, everything just never got done. And it was like I was alone again. I still didn't belong because he was always upstairs with his family and his kids. And it was like I was always down here alone. So I still never had that belonging. And that's all I've really wanted. I just wanted, like, somebody who got me, understood me, loved me, and then, like, create our own belonging, you know, like, feeling connected. And I did have that with Jay, like, but it got messed up from drugs. And I think that's why I felt so guilty too, is because he was such a good person. But, you know, I've had a lot of time to process that, and I know it's not my fault. I know, like, he went down the path he went down because that's just the path he went down. And obviously it was meant to be that way. But that, you know, I've always wanted somebody that could understand me on that level. And so coming into this work, I found that. I find so many others out there who are like, me too. Or I find others out there who hear parts of this, because I don't hide this. You know, the people out there who are, like, trying to make me feel bad because of, you know, my relationship with my mother wasn't always great, or, you know, trying to use things against me, like, oh, you should feel this way about this because where would you be without that? It's like, dude, you have no clue. You have no idea what I've been through, okay? You know, you've got your little tidbits, your little pieces. You don't have the full extent of it. You're just looking through eyes of judgment and you know, using what you have to, like, make somebody else feel small. And that's not okay. And I would never do that to somebody. I think that's so unfair. And so that was another part of me coming on here, too, is, like, to let you guys know, like, I understand, I get it. Anything that you've got going on, it's likely that I can probably empathize with you. And if I haven't experienced it, like, directly in my own life, I'm sure I've been around it, or have, you know, had something along those lines happen. And so, you know, I went through all of that stuff with that next place, and it was similar stuff. You know, I was constantly giving, promoting, building a big community, having all of my events there, you know, giving 40% of everything that I was making to that place, and just working really hard. And then when my ex went to jail, finally, I was like, yeah, I can get out. I needed to find a place to go, so I was presented a place to go. My dad came out, and he needed a place to go, so I was like, all right, we'll make a deal. If you don't drink, and you can be normal, and you can help me survive, and, you know, pay towards whatever it is that we end up living in, we'll do that. So he came in at the perfect time, and, you know, I really do feel like my ex was a catalyst for me. He got me away from drugs, and I don't feel like I ever would have came to this awakening without that. So I don't have, like, any regrets. I don't hate him. I do love him, even though I know he probably, like, doesn't even have the ability, because the narcissists don't. I do care about him. I hope he doesn't, like, I hope something happens in his life where he can overcome all the shit that he's been through, and not be so, like, you know, maybe be able to see his part and stuff, because that was one thing that I hated the most, was, like, he would lie to me, and I'd have, like, a picture of him in our bed with that girl, and be like, and he'd be like, that's not me. Oh, a lot of people have that bed, and a lot of people have that blanket, and a lot of people, I'm like, and that fucking tattoo? Like, you know, it was just never could admit to stuff, and I hate that the most. I hate when people lie to me. Please don't lie to me, because I feel it, and I know it. And I'm like, so there's so much stuff, like, I just wanted to get it out there. I just wanted to put it all out there so you guys know, like, yeah, I've been through it. I've had the narcissist. I've had the, you know, I've had the heartbreak. I've had the, like, body issues. I've been 165 pounds. I've been 90 pounds. I've been all over the spectrum. You know, I've dealt with people who have kids. I've, you know, dealt with wanting to have a child and not being able to have the child. I've dealt with, like, you know, losing a child and then losing the dad and thinking it was my fault. You know, I've tried to kill myself several times. Even when I was younger, when I was, like, 12, I had taken, they gave me Prozac, because they told me, my mom, that I needed Prozac, and I was, like, 12. And because they told me something was wrong with me, I believed it, and I was like, whoop, took the whole bottle because I wanted to die. Didn't do anything, but again, at the age of 12, I was suicidal. So I've never felt like I belonged here. This world has always been uncomfortable to me, and I've always gotten, like, mixed up in these dynamics with people where they take and they take and they take, and I give and I give and I give. And then over this past 2 years has been the big shift. So it's been 11 years since I've done, like, the drug stuff. And it's been about 7 years since, like, my awakening. And it's been about 2 years since getting away from my ex. And since then, I've been able to manifest a home, manifest a car, manifest a bank account, fix my credit, have credit cards. I was able to, like, furnish my home, get all of the stuff that I need, building my own studio, and bringing the focus on myself, promoting myself, using all of the knowledge and all of the information that I worked on, that I took the time out to do for me, instead of giving it all away to everybody else, or bringing my time, my energy and attention to everybody else, instead of promoting everybody else and, you know, trying to help everybody else with their careers and their work and their lives. I was like, here it comes on to me now. And one thing that sucked too is, like, the first time I moved, it was a beautiful house, and I was so grateful for it. It was like a catalyst. But because it was the place that, like, liberated me away from that situation, I was like, oh, I don't want to leave. And I was so upset, like, when I was thinking I was going to have to come here, because I was like, I was, like, attached to it, and I just wanted to be able to stay there. And when I moved in there, I'm a Taurus. Like, I need to have stability. I need to know where I'm going. I didn't know that, and I didn't know for months. And then finally, like, I found out that, like, the person that owned the house, the people that were going to come live there were going to come live there, but I was able to come live here. And I was like, oh, okay. So that took a lot of pressure off. But even coming here, I again went into that, like, oh no, because when I went from living in the basement to living in that house. That was a huge transition. And it's like screwed with my flow of work too, because I'm now like bringing all my time and energy to this new place and like moving and all of that. And I knew that I was going to have to do that again in another 8 months. And now I'm responsible for all these bills and all these things and all these utilities and fixing my credit and, furnishing a home and taking care of, cars and things like that. And it just having to have like the real life again. And I was able to do it. But unfortunately, I had to do it in a way that like, I was still going to the other places that I had been working at and like interacting with them and like promoting them and supporting them, but not to the level I had been before. And I think that was kind of a problem, because as soon as I moved into that house, I felt a shift in the energy with my community that I just had this big, huge fallout with. And I think it was because underlying in there somewhere, whether they want to admit it or not, I was taking my time and my energy and my focus away back over to like me and like my life. And I know like one of them for sure was used to spending time with me one-on-one. Like they were like so distraught, like they cried when they found out I was going to be coming to Duxbury, because it was even further. So it was coming from a selfish place of like wanting time and attention and like me to do stuff with them, but I didn't have the time for it. And then my mom was sick. And so when my mom got sick, like I said, I go to the hospital. I have to be there. I got to help her out. I'm a fucking healer. And yeah, she wasn't always nice because she was sick. She would yell at me and scream at me and be mean to me and be like, bring me this, bring me that, blah, blah, blah. But she was my mom and nobody else was doing it. So I had to. And I made it work. And it's like all of these things are going on in the background, but I was still doing my work and I was still showing up and I was still trying to help others. And I could just feel everything pulling apart. And I kept asking, yeah, we're fine. But we weren't. They were just saying we were, and we weren't. And so all of this stuff kept going on and going on. And eventually I found I'm coming here, and I come here. And as soon as I start coming here to this house, my mother goes into the hospital. And it's really bad this time. Like, it was really bad that time. And I knew that it was different. And I kept trying to talk to people who were my friends. And one of the times that I went to talk about it, like one person was asking me about it, this other person that I kept asking if had a problem with me was like just so rude to me and so mean to me and was like, I don't want to hear this and blah, 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 blah. And it to the point that like when she left, the other person was like, what the fuck? I feel like we just got in trouble. And it was just so much of a shift from like this person who had claimed to be like my spirit mother, or like, bring me the aspects of a mother that like my mother couldn't in the times like when I was a child or, growing up, or the times that she was sick or an addict, the times that I wasn't nurtured by a mom. It was like these other women wanted to come in and do that. But now I look back at it and I'm like, why did they do that? Did they do that just to hear the stuff that they wanted to hear? And now we're going to like use it against me and like, belittle me or like put me down and say like, oh, where would you be without an abortion? Or, oh, like your mother wasn't a good mother, why are you so upset? Like that to me is just horrible. That is not a healer. That is not a community. That is not a friend. And I really don't know what I said or did, because I didn't say any of this stuff until now. Like I didn't even know of this stuff till now. I know the only thing I've done recently is say like I felt a shift pulled away from certain people, and that like I didn't want to get healings with a certain person anymore because I didn't feel safe telling them stuff anymore, because I felt that shift. I knew, like when you walk into a room and people stop talking, they're talking about you. And then I was getting like cryptic messages from other people being like, you need to get out of here, like I wouldn't work anywhere else, you need to work solo, and blah 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 blah. So that makes me think like, all right, what are these people saying and doing? But then there would always be that like weirdness. Like even when I first got here, that person was like, are you gonna just do stuff at your place, or are you gonna still do stuff here? And I was like, well, I plan to do stuff here unless you don't want me to. Well, that's not what I said, but the way that it was said leaves it up in the air and you don't know. So I pulled back and I was dealing with my mom, and the little bit of stuff that I was doing was like these things, like I was recording readings for people and sending them to them just so that I had some income coming in while I was like dealing with my sick mom day in and day out. And then she dies, and then it's like crickets. all of the people that I had helped with their business, all of the people I had helped with their websites, all of the people that I thought were like spirit moms, gone. And they weren't gone yet. You know, like I was still like kind of interacting with them. Like I got a sympathy card, I got a sympathy basket, I got a sympathy this. And there's still some out there that like were beautiful people that came. There's people I didn't even know that came to the ceremony that I had here for my mom. But the people that were my friends, that were my community, that were my spirit moms, not a one of them came. And that speaks a lot to me right there, that they didn't care. You know, like the one that has helped me the most, the one that I'm still close with, she came, but none of the others did. None of the ones that I'm no longer communicating with. So I feel like as I'm looking over this stuff and as I'm communicating this stuff, I'm figuring it out. Like, I didn't need these people in my life. Like, why do I even care that they exiled me from their shit? Because they didn't support me. They didn't love me. They weren't gonna, like, ever show up for me. I showed up to their stuff. I promoted their stuff. I helped with their stuff. Like, I actually channeled stuff for them and put things together. Like, I've made videos for people and, like, honored them and loved them and, you know, helped them with stupid shit and some stuff that wasn't stupid, some stuff that's still benefiting them to this day. And all I got back was, like, anything that they knew about me was, like, being manipulated and just separation and isolation and feeling like I don't belong again. So it's that pattern through my whole life of not really fitting in and not belonging and not having, like, that love and that support. And I feel like right now, because I've always had that codependent thing in my life, or I've always wanted to, like, somebody to make me feel like I belong somewhere, it's about me being here, focusing on me, not focusing on anybody else, not allowing anybody else into the space unless they're coming for healing or an event or a class or something like that. I feel like it needs to just be me for a while. I need to focus on me and heal all of that stuff in the past. So that is where I'm at today. That is my awakening story. There is a lot of other stuff in there, like, you know, my automatic writing has now, you know, like, sped up to the point where, like, I can write from the emissaries very quickly. I do the trance channeling, and that was a result of the munay key. The munay key was actually a result of nobody around here. That was from my Pleiadian peeps. So I really do feel a huge shift coming back in, and it's like them pushing me back into alignment with what I'm supposed to be doing. And I think I shied away from it too because of the whole twin flame thing. I didn't want, like, that person to think I was a psycho or was crazy or whatever. So I kind of, like, shied back away from, like, putting out my collective stuff or putting out my channeling stuff because I didn't want them to go look at that and be like, this bitch is nuts. But I don't care anymore. This is my mission. This is my work. This is what I'm here to do. I am always going to provide and survive and bloom and blossom in abundance. And I'm always going to be able to find the people who need or resonate. And so if you're still here and you're still connecting and you're still wanting to be a part of my journey, I love you. I appreciate you. I understand where you're coming from. Like, if you're here, it's because you've been through it. You get it. You know it. And, you know, anybody who can't stick around because of my past or because of my boundaries or because I'm not going to just give everything away for free or because I want those in my life to ripple back to me what I ripple to them, then I'm fine with them being gone. And as for anything that I've ever shared with anybody about my past, about my addictions, about my, you know, not having children and not doing this and not doing that, I'm not the same person I was then. You know, I feel like I integrated, I healed, I did a lot, and I've brought myself to this point now. And now it's like, all right, you've done this and you've done that and you've worked through this. Now let's work on you. Let's blossom you. Let's put you out there. Let's, you know, promote your stuff. Let's get you on the like, you know, website work and on this stuff for your own benefit, rather than worrying about everybody else or taking time and energy. Because I do that. It's like when somebody comes into my life and they need something, I'm like, here, let me help you. Oh, you don't have that? Neither do I, but I'll give you what I do have. It's like I go too far. And, you know, I did have somebody else say to me something the other night about that too. It's like, I really feel, you know, the work I was doing with the shaman stuff too, it propelled a lot of this forward, because it was like I did that first direction in the South, and it was like every single person that I was friends with, like literally so many people. I'm not even exaggerating. There's like at least a dozen people that I was friends with that are gone now, and a lot of them, all of them, none of them told me what I did. None of them said what I did. Like one person sent me a letter and basically was like, you talked badly about others and it got back to them. And I'm like, what did I say? Because I'm assuming it was my truth, and it was probably stuff that I would have said to their face or did say to their face. And I feel like really honestly all it was that there was a few of these people who were really pissed off that I wasn't really doing what I had been doing in the past, and they were like, you know what, bye, let's sabotage this for this, you know. So it feels unfair, and I didn't want to believe this of this person, but I've slowly been able to see over time, like, the de-evolution of that person. Like, I used to have them up on a pedestal, and I mean, even when I first met the person, something felt off, but then after time, I was like, they must know what they're talking about, and I fell into that collective bullshit, the society stuff, like, well, if everybody else believes her bullshit, maybe I should believe her bullshit. She seems to know, whatever. And then over time, it was like, this bitch doesn't know, like, it was like, every fucking day, she was contradicting herself, and every day, the energies were getting like, ugh. And every day I was feeling less and less welcome, just like I've always felt. So here I am in my own space. Nobody can kick me out. Nobody can tell me that it's not like I can't do this or I can't do that, because I'm calling the shots of when I'm going to do something, when I'm not going to do something, how I want to do it, like how I want it to look, how I want to share it, like, and I don't have to listen to somebody's bullshit going back and forth and let me fix this for you 75 times for $15, when I could have been, you know, taking all that time, energy, and effort onto myself. So I really do feel like that's where we're getting to now for the Starseeds. And I mean, if you're just awakening, you probably have a long process of healing in front of you, but you probably have a similar history. I'm not saying you were an addict or that you've done anything bad or whatever, but you probably have that similar history of not feeling like you fit in, wanting to isolate yourself away, wanting to numb the pain that comes with this world, because we feel everything, literally. Like, I can't be near another person. Like, driving for Uber, when I'm picking up the drunk people, I literally feel drunk when I get home, and I'm like, oh my God. Like, we absorb the energy of other people. We just do. We're antennas. We bring consciousness, we bring energy, we bring light. We're meant to help other people, and we can't help other people unless we help ourselves, and we have to continuously help ourselves. You know, overcoming addiction, great, woohoo, big deal. Overcoming, you know, like the stuff, like the sadness that was connected to not having the child, okay, done. Like, I'm sure there's still stuff in there that is like, you know, needs to come up and be healed and cleansed and processed even more. We're never really done. But, like, I don't feel like the same person that needs to worry about that anymore. I don't feel like the same person that needed to hide that anymore. I don't care if everybody knows, because it's my truth. And I'd rather have my truth out there and have everybody know all of the details about who I am and what I bring to the table, and let them decide from that point if they still want me in their lives or not. You know, I don't want to go into relationships or have people come to me and, you know, like, have somebody else who I've opened up to in healing or in like a sacred space or in a place where they weren't going to share this information, go around and drag my name through the dirt or say things about me or make me feel badly about stuff I've been through as a means of revenge or whatever. I'm not going to allow that. So I would rather be the one that comes forth right now and says, hey, this is me, this is where I've been, this is what I've done, this is where my focus is now, and this is why I'm doing it. And that's basically all I needed to do and all I wanted to say. And I know, like, for the awakening aspect of it, you may have a lot of questions. So what I think would be best is, like, if you have certain questions in regards to your awakening, like things that you went through, like the writing or the channeling or you know, just like the interaction with like light ships and like going outside at night and being connecting, like, I always know when the emissaries are here because I hear them say we are here. Like, you will know your signs, you will know your synchronicities, you will know your messages, you will know your origin too. Like, it's all that information's inside of you. If you need help getting on that path, if you need help kind of like navigating it, or like, you know, seeing like a different perspective maybe. I do offer readings for starseeds, like the origin readings. I can do like your past lives, like figure out where you've been so you can kind of tap into the energies of what you're supposed to be doing now. I can help people figure out like what kind of gifts they have and stuff like that. And I really feel like the focus needs to come back onto that for me for a while. The focus needs to come back onto like my workshops. Like the new paradigm is something that's a very expansive thing that it helps us to like, it blows the doors off of Reiki. It's like we get rid of all the limitations, we get rid of all the rules, we get rid of hand placements, and we just go with our intention and our energy. We use the vortex to download the energy and frequency of whatever it is that we want. You don't have to bring an amethyst because you can download and integrate the energy of it through the vortex. And then like the munay key too, like those 9 rites of initiation, those opened up a lot for me. That's when I first started channeling meditations. That was the first time I did like a trance channel. And now when I do trance channel for a group of people, they say that my face changes and my eyes light up and all of this stuff happens. But that never happened until I came here. So I know that being here is propelling me forward. And I know that being here and losing all of those people means that they weren't my people. My people are out there, and my people are showing up. Like yesterday, I looked out the window for the girl that was coming in for a reading, and I was like, she's Pleiadian. Like, I knew immediately. And then she came in, and we talked, and at the end, I was like, are you Taurus? And she's, yeah. So she's a Taurus, and she's a Pleiadian. Like, I get my confirmation from people in many different ways. You don't have to be Taurus. You could be Scorpio. The lineup is in November and in May from the 15th and 20th. So if you have any connections to those dates or even around those dates, you may have like different Pleiadian codings. But there's also codings in there for like, you know, mastery of crystal work and like Atlantis stuff. And I do feel like the Starseeds, a lot of us were here for Atlantis. I don't feel like what people say. Yeah, I think there's a lot of timelines too. Like, I don't believe in just one history, and that's why I don't resonate with who I was. Because we are the creator of our reality, and everything in our future exists in potential form. So you get to create who you're becoming, and you get to dictate where you're going. So you can reach into the future, into the version of yourself that's still holding on to that part of yourself that was an addict, or that part of yourself that did something wrong, or that part of yourself that was like abused or taken advantage of. And you can like screw shit up and make things go like, ugh. Or you can let go of that shit and go down this path of like, okay, I've healed myself from that, and I'm working through this, and I'm going to continue upward into this new path of expansion. You know, you rewrite the past. Like, we can go back and we can heal any of the stuff we've been through, and we can go forward into the future and grab that new version of ourselves that we want to embody and bring it to this now moment. But we got to listen to the, like, words that are coming in. We got to listen to the divine. We got to let ourselves open up and connect, heal and shift, and really just change the collective. That's what it's all about. So I hope that this made sense for you guys. I hope that you have a beautiful night. If you are interested in a reading or a healing or anything like that, I do have my website, and I will put some information down below about reading prices and all of that. I hope that this isn't too long. If you have any questions, put them in the comments, and I will try to make videos, you know, to assist in that. But I just wanted to get this story out there. I feel like it was time for me to just get my truth out to all of you. And, you know, I'm sure there's people out there going to watch this and be like, what? You know, and I'm 34 years old, for those who don't believe me. I've been through this. You know, I've been on this dynamic for a while. I've been through a lot. And I don't hold on to that. I am who I am now. I'm not who I was then, and I'm not going to stay who I am in this moment. I'm going to continue to shine, and I'm going to continue to expand, and I'm going to continue to heal. So, in munay, namaste.